Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Bat Around. Sorry for any confusion here. There's been some technical difficulties going on. Ryan, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, Paul. How are you, man?
Doing all right. I'm not sure if people can see us or not. There was something that said that something was expiring with Facebook. Then it kicked me out of the studio, let me back in. So hopefully we've got people tuning into the program today. Welcome to the Bat Around.
We do have one Facebook comment already, just a simple morning, gentlemen. But it seems like Facebook is working all right, from what I can tell.
Well, then we're gonna press on here. Sorry for any confusion to start the show. You think I took a fastball off the back of the head last night? Too soon? I don't know. What it's not too soon for is Royal Farms Chicken Palooza, which continues at your neighborhood Royal Farms. This year's deals include a 3-piece meal for just $8 and an 8-piece meal for just $12. Plus, you can go to royalfarms.com and enter for your chance to win chicken for a year. And while you're there, vote for your favorite charity as Royal Farms is donating 10 cents from every 3-piece meal sold during Chicken Palooza to the winning charity. Plus, don't forget to get your Chicken Palooza gear to celebrate everyone's favorite season. So stop by your neighborhood Rofo today. Ryan, where to begin? So Cade Povich last night, 5 1/3 innings, 3 earned runs, 5 hits. 5 walks for the third time in his big league career, 6 strikeouts. He faces Garrett Cole and got outdueled by Garrett Cole. 6 innings pitched, 5 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. Ramon Arias had an RBI triple, the lone run for the Orioles. There's something like 1 for 26 with runners in scoring position this past week. They have scored 1 run in their last 32 innings, having been shut out in back-to-back games by the Chicago Cubs and then scoring 1 run last night. Ryan, this offense, what the hell's going on?
Dude, it's a mess right now. And of all people to drive in the lone run of the last 3 games, it's the guy everyone wants off the team for Kobe Mayo. Baseball's a funny game. But yeah, man, it's been rough. The failure to execute with runners in scoring position. And it's 1 through 9. It's not, any specific culprits. Even last night, we get a runner on third after Volpe 2 hops a throw from second base and ball goes out of play. Mullins is at second with nobody out. Arias gets the run over. Would have beat it out if he had any type of speed at all. And then you got a runner on third with 1 out. Gunnar watches strike 3. Adley hits a little jam shot foul. It's caught by LeMahieu in foul territory. So it's not just the worst hitters in the lineup who are failing to come through. It's top to bottom. And I was thinking last night, like, if I'm pissed off at Adley and Gunnar, that's how you know things are bad. It's just been a really rough stretch.
Gunnar stranded a runner in scoring position each of his last 3 at-bats yesterday. So like you said, it's not just the guys at the bottom of the order. And Ramon Arias had himself a good game last night. He almost beat out two base hits that if he had even a modicum of speed, he would have beaten out. But he has the RBI triple. He comes up with a runner on second base and does his job with nobody out. Does his job, gets that runner over to third base. Now there's 1 out for the best hitters in your lineup. And Gunnar inexplicably watches strike 3. And how many times have we seen Gunnar argue a strike 3 call on a pitch that was in the zone?
Yeah, it seems like he wants to walk, which – runner on third, 1 out, you don't want to set up a potential double play. You want to put the ball in play and get that run home, especially when you're down by 2, right? You got to chip away. And to be fair to Gunnar, it was pretty good sequencing by Garrett Cole. He gave him 4 breaking balls and then a fastball on the outer edge after Gunnar was looking for, either that cutter or a curveball down and in, which is where Cole had attacked him for the majority of that at-bat. Part of me was like, he's bound to throw a fastball eventually, and he painted one on the outside corner. So, good job by Cole, but if you're Gunnar, you got to swing the bat, you got to put the ball in play and try to do a job there, and he wasn't able to do it.
And to be fair, he didn't argue strike 3 on that one, but he argued strike 3 the previous at bat. That was clear. The last 2 pitches that were for strikes 2 and 3 were in the zone, and he argued them. Santander got struck out on a pitch that was nowhere near the zone. You're seeing strikes called on Adley that are 4 inches off the plate. The umpiring wasn't great, but the umpire isn't great for both sides. So there's not really an argument to be had there. The bottom line is that the Orioles just aren't scoring runs. And it doesn't feel like the team's making adjustments, and it doesn't feel like they're doing anything to help the team to get better players up here. We're going to get into that here in a little bit.
And it was especially interesting because, we've talked about the offensive struggles, and we talked about it last week on the show as well. It's something that's, this isn't a small sample size thing. We're coming up on about 2 weeks now. And I said on last week's show that the Orioles were due for an 8 spot. And sure enough, they score 8 runs, but they give up 19. Mm-hmm. And, since they've scored 9 runs in total since then, and 6 of them were in one game on last Sunday.
Yeah, they've scored 39 runs in their last 13 games. That's exactly 3 runs per game. And what that Chicago Cubs series, and you hear people on the radio trying to be like, oh, the Cubs came in playing great baseball. No, they came in having won a series, but they had lost like 15 of 19 before that series against the Phillies. They came in and completely dismantled the Orioles. They took them apart bit by bit. It wasn't even competitive in that series against the Cubs. It was arguably, in my opinion, the worst series for the Orioles all year. It was not competitive.
It was the worst series for the Orioles in several years.
Just
nothing, no fight, no closeness. Like even if they had punched in a couple of those runs with runners in scoring position, it still wouldn't have been particularly close. Mm-hmm. It was a complete, like you said, dismantling.
And then yesterday, it bled into the game against the Yankees. It continued. Santander in the first inning doesn't catch a line drive hit right at him. Now, look, I can forgive him for that. Line drives hit right at you as an outfielder are the hardest balls to catch. You don't know if they're going to land in front of you or they're going to go over your head. So I can forgive that. But letting that single from Volpe get under his glove and let Volpe get all the way to third base, that can't happen. Then you see the throw in and Ryan Mount on a play at the plate, and Ryan Mountcastle cuts the ball off. We don't know if the guy's going to be safe at the plate or not. You'd like to see him let the throw go through to try and get the out. I think he would have been safe regardless. But if you're going to cut that ball off and you've got the catcher in Trevino 2/3 of the way to second base when you cut that ball off, that guy's got to be out. And he's not, because nobody's at first base to continue to run down. So Trevino, the catcher, ends up back on.
It was Soto.
No, that was Trevino. Trevino was the one.
Yeah,
Trevino was the one who had the base hit to right field.
Gotcha.
But the backup, the catcher, who most catchers run like they have a piano strapped to their back, he's the one who is back on first base after a rundown, because the Orioles couldn't do a simple basic rundown that you practice for 6 weeks in spring training. The team's just playing their worst brand of baseball since early 2022 or 2021. The offense can't get it going. The starting pitching hasn't been great. Even Corbin Burns wasn't great the other night against the Cubs. He gave up 3 runs in 6 innings, but he labored, had a lot of hard hit balls off of him. It's been really kind of unwatchable baseball because they show no signs of life. And I'm wondering, Ryan, how much of this is because of how many games they played in the same amount of days in June?
Yeah, it's tough to quantify that. They played a ton of games in June. They had their second off day in, I think, 32 days on the 1st of July, and then had another off day on Monday. Look, it's hard to say. I think, there are certain instances where you can say for sure, like, this team needs a break. And I think that's certainly true with the Orioles, coming into the All-Star break. They could use it. A mental reset, a physical reset, whatever it may be. The team is scuffling and they need some kind of spark. And whether that spark is going to be a few days off to regroup, it's hard to say for sure. But I think the fact of the matter is, we said it all through June. The team seems to be exhausted. But, even if they are tired, you have to be able to execute. And to go 1 for 26 or whatever this awful stretch is with runners in scoring position, like, they might be tired, but you still got to do a job. You still got to put the ball in play. These guys are used to a 162-game grind. You're going to have stretches where you don't have many off days, and you got to find ways to come through. And the fact of the matter is the Orioles haven't been able to do that. So maybe they do just need the All-Star break to reset. Maybe it was something like the benches clearing last night that'll give them a little bit of a jolt. and we'll talk about that here in a second. But it's been hard to watch, man. A lot of non-competitive games. I don't think they've had a lead since Sunday. They may have. I don't think they had a lead. No, because Westberg homered to make it 2-1, and they never trailed on Tuesday. So they haven't had a lead since Sunday, and it's hard to play from behind. We've seen a lot of fight from this team. They were the most consistent team in baseball for the last 2 years until they get swept by St. Louis, and then swept by Houston, and now swept by the Cubs. So it's been tough to watch because we're so used to them not being swept and finding ways to win, even when they're not playing their best ball, and they haven't been doing that lately.
Well, and then you mentioned benches cleared last night. Heston Kjerstad steps up to the plate, and he takes a 97-mile-an-hour fastball from Clay Holmes off the ear hole. He's down for several seconds. At first, the way he went down, you thought, okay, I think he's okay. And then he laid there for a good bit, right? Brian Ebel and Brandon Hyde come out of the dugout. Brandon Hyde's clearly looking at Clay Holmes like, how do you miss that badly inside? I don't think that there's any intent to it. I've seen some people say, watch it again, there's intent. There's no chance that ball is in a 3-run. I'm not going to say no chance. I'm not going to say no chance because
it's very unlikely.
It's very unlikely that he's throwing at Heston Kjerstad or specifically throwing at Heston Kjerstad's head.
And by the way, can I get ahead of this real quick? If you're one of these Orioles fans who's calling for Judge or Soto to wear one today as some form of retaliation, shut up. Shut up. We're better than that. We're more mature than that. You get your retaliation by beating them. So the offense needs to come out swinging today, put some runs on the board early, set the tone. Grayson needs to shove. You get your retaliation by beating them. It's as simple as that. Don't give them a free base run.
And that's what cost the Yankees the series.
Yep.
Last time, because they came out and threw at Gunnar Henderson. He immediately steals second and then scores on a base hit. And the Orioles end up winning that game by 1 run. You don't want to, they're trying to, I don't know that the Yankees specifically are trying to do it or their fans are trying to do it, but you're going to fall right into the same trap that they fell into if you try to retaliate.
Yeah.
In the heat of the moment, I can understand getting amped up and be like, oh, we got to throw at them. When calmer heads prevail, you can clearly see that it's not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I did love Brandon Hyde getting as fired up as he did as he's walking back to the dugout. I heard him say, bitch, Nestor Cortez. I'd like to fight Nestor Cortez.
Sure.
The guy's just a chode. And for him to start barking at Brandon Hyde after they hit his player in the head, seeing that fire from Brandon Hyde, that's what I love about him. I've never been the biggest Brandon Hyde fan. In fact, you can say I'm probably one of his biggest detractors. I've never been a Brandon Hyde guy. But when I see him get fired up like he did again with Robbie Ray on the mound for the Blue Jays a couple of years ago, when he goes and he defends his players like that last night, that's what I want to see out of the manager. Make a bad move here, a bad call there, fine. But when push comes to shove, you're doing a lot of the shoving there. That's what I want to see. And there's a lot of people who think that Brandon Hyde does not get fired up enough. Are you in that camp?
Yeah. And in fact, I was feeling that way last night. There were, a couple instances where, sure, Gunnar, the pitch that he was rung up on was in the zone. But it was high in the zone, right? It was a curveball that just barely caught the top of the plate. But then Santander has an incredible at bat, and he's fouling off pitches left and right, and then gets rung up on a pitch that was 6 inches up and at his hands, just wasn't close. And Hyde, I think, said a couple words, but I wanted to see a little more fire from him. There have been plenty of instances this year where he could have, dug into the home plate umpire. There have been a lot of calls that have gone against the Orioles, especially in big spots, pitches that we're not getting on the mound, but they're getting at the plate. So there have been a lot of instances this year where I'm like, do something, man. I miss the Brandon Hyde who would yell at Robbie Ray when he was on the mound. I miss the Brandon Hyde that, when things were bad, he was the first one to get out of the dugout and make something happen and try to give his guys a jolt. And I was feeling that way last night, especially after the Santander at bat. And then sure enough, he comes out comes out swinging in the ninth inning. So that was certainly good to see, and it kind of put to rest some of those concerns that I had. That he does still have his guys back. The guys love him. I'm with you in a lot of ways about his management style. But one thing that cannot be denied is that Brandon Hyde loves his players and his players love him.
Well, and you can see that with the way that he went after the Yankees dugout last night, and the way that the first three guys in front of him were Cedric Mullins, Austin Hayes, and Anthony Santon there. And you can say a lot, but it's clear that when Brandon Hyde does something like that, that's why his team loves him. You can tell that he's just one of those guys. He's just one of the dudes to them. You know what I mean? He happens to be the captain of the ship, but he's one of the guys, and it kind of gets lost because you see him make a lot of questionable decisions, whether it's the lineup or who's coming in from the bullpen, or if it's the hider hook when he goes and gets a pitcher too early. But he's a guy's guy. You know what I mean? He's probably a guy who would be a hell of a time to have a beer with.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So I got to remind myself to remember that managing isn't just those decisions, but it's how you cultivate a culture in a clubhouse, and he's got that in spades. So I will give him credit where credit is due. Do you anticipate that his blow up last night, the whole team coming out there and everybody getting all fired up, and we saw Freddie Gonzalez just jawing away last night, like he was beat red in the face, ready to go, with Garrett Cole at a point too. Do you anticipate that this is going to light a fire under the Orioles and they'll play some good baseball the last two games before the break?
I hope so, man. Something's got to give you a jolt. And when you've scored one run in your last 3 games, 3 in your last 4, 9 in your last 5, like you got to get something to get the team riled up. And yeah, shout out Freddie Gonzalez. He was digging into that Yankees team last night. Whether the main instigator was whatever, I don't even know the name of their bench coach, who was the one who was like kind of, telling Hyde to come over if he had something to say. It looked like Nestor Cortez might have had a role. Maybe Marcus Stroman was right next to him. Maybe he had something to do with it. Trevino over on the bench. Like it's kind of hard to tell exactly who sparked the whole thing.
That was Cortez waving him over.
Cortez had his arm up in the air, but a little bit to his right, our left on the video, it was some dude. I think he's their bench coach. Had said some words. It was a combination of stuff. And maybe Hyde was giving Holmes a bit of a look, or Austin Wells or whatever, and maybe that's what the true root of it was. But the fact of the matter is, Hyde was walking back to the dugout with Heston Kjerstad and Brian Ebel, and then heard some chirping. And I think I saw in a replay a little bit of a Hyde with the classic, F me, F you, like one of those before he walked over there, and he's pointing in the dugout, and it was a much needed jolt of emotion for a team that hasn't shown much this week. And so hopefully that's something that will carry over into their performance today and tomorrow. Grayson has the type of attitude where he wants to go out today and pitch. He wants to go pitch a perfect game today.
Oh, absolutely. You saw him when they hit Gunnar about a month ago. You saw the look on his face. He was like, really? Like, you're coming at our guys? You know that Grayson's going to go out there and absolutely shove, or at least he's going to want to shove, whether he does not. So sometimes you see guys who get so amped up that they overthrow or they go. But I remember last year, in my opinion, the best start of Grayson Rodriguez's career was against the Rays in September last year. He went on through 8 shutout innings when the Orioles, they needed to win that series to solidify themselves in first place in the division and kind of solidify their place in the postseason. And Grayson went out there and threw 8 shutout innings and just absolutely stepped on their throats. And that he had that bulldog mentality going into the game, like, my team needs me, that's what I'm going to do. And I think that's what he's going to do today. I think he's going to go out there and he's absolutely going to shove. Whether the offense backs him is a completely other story. We'll see what comes from that. But I know that we can depend on Grayson to go out there and give one of his best efforts tonight. For sure.
If he can locate his fastball up in the zone, he's got the changeup working for him. Like when he throws a good changeup, I'm not sure there's a better pitch in baseball. It is absolutely filthy. If he can locate that down and avoid bouncing too many of them, And if he can keep his fastball up near the top of the zone and not, keep it competitive, right? You can miss above the zone, but you don't want to, if he's overthrowing, he's going to be missing by a foot or a foot and a half up above the zone. So I think, we'll see in the first couple innings whether or not Grayson's going to have it today, and I think he will.
Yeah, I'm counting on it. I'd be betting on it. However, if you or a loved one has a gambling problem, maybe don't bet on it, but maybe call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services. We were just talking about Brandon Hyde, Ryan, and there's been a lot of discourse this week over Brandon Hyde, some of his lineup decisions, the fact that the team's not really scoring any runs, the fact that there's people that should be on this roster that aren't, frankly, especially you're wishing one of those guys was on the roster this past week. A lot of discourse amongst the fan base over the offense and over Hyde consistently playing Austin Hayes, Colton Cowser, and Cedric Mullins while Heston Kjerstad rides the bench. Fans are also clamoring for Coby Mayo and Connor Norby, who are both tearing up AAA, while Ramon Arias, despite the RBI triple last night, and Jorge Mateo have been automatic outs up here. There's also disdain over the amount of games that James McCann plays. He's caught 41% of the Orioles games. We know Mike Elias makes the roster moves. We know Brandon Hyde has final say on the lineup. How much say does Brandon Hyde have on roster moves, and how much say does Mike Elias have on the lineup?
It's a good question and a fair question. I don't think we truly know the answer to that. I will say I think it's more likely than not that it's more of a group effort than we.
I don't think that the lineup is. I really don't. I think that the lineup. I think they talk about it every day, but I think it's ultimately Brandon Hyde's decision.
I think it is ultimately Hyde's decision, but I think there is a lot of input from the analytics department in the front office that kind of this is what will give us an advantage. And we get on Hyde for his insistence on trying to have the handedness matchup, even if the splits don't make sense. So it's hard to say how much of that is truly him. I think a lot of it is, but I also think there's plenty of input of this is in this situation, this is what we want. This is going to give us the best chance to come through and produce. In terms of roster moves, I don't think Hyde has much of a say at all. I think that, there's certainly input there with, I think this guy is seeing the ball well. I think, this pitcher is able to give us, a couple innings of length in the bullpen, whatever it may be. I think there's input from Hyde, but ultimately I think it's Mike Elias who's making the decisions there. Hyde might go to his guy and say, hey, Keegan Aiken has been struggling lately. I think we need a better lefty in the bullpen or someone who can give us a couple innings in crunch time if we need it. And I think that's why we see some of these moves with, Matt Crook and this is a dude who came up last night, Birch Smith, coming in. So it's hard to say for sure. I think there's, a good bit of collaboration, but ultimately I think Hyde has the day-to-day and Elias has the roster.
Do you think with this offense, and there's a solution here, right? Like, you don't really have anybody to play center field that's going to give you an offensive jolt. You just don't. Colton Cowser has hit. I see the peripherals, the barrel rate, the hard hit rate. It's not like Colton Cowser's expected batting average is like 243. All right. And people are like, oh, it's going to come around. It's been 3 months since he's hit. He's hitting 180 since April 16th. So I can't quite understand why results don't matter to some people when just because he has his expected slugging or his hard hit rate or his barrel rate is high. Well, that doesn't mean that he's getting base hits because he's not. He's hitting 180 over the last 3 months. And now he's getting diminished playing time because of it. But Cedric Mullins is slumping again also. He came into that game last night. What was he, 4 for his last 29 going into the game last night? And then he had an infield single. Like these guys aren't hitting, and there's nobody to put in center field. But you can play Kjerstad in left field every day. Santander in right field. You can DH O'Hearn. You can call up Coby Mayo and have Jordan Westbrook play second base. Or you can call up Connor Norby, have Connor Norby play second base with Westbrook at third. There's ways to get this offense up and running again. Too many times we see the bottom half of the order be Mullins, Cowser, McCann, and Arias, or McCann and and Mateo. James McCann's playing way too much. Like, he is playing, in my opinion, way too much. Do the Orioles need to trade for a bat? Or do you think that they'll make some moves over the All-Star break to bring up some guys from the minors who are having a hell of a run down there and try and supplement from the inside?
Yeah, I don't think you necessarily need to trade for a bat. I wouldn't be adverse to it, but let me backtrack for a second. I think a lot of the issue that we're seeing with Colton Cowser, and yes, this has been an extended slump, and yes, he faced plenty of right-hand pitching, but he's been starting primarily against lefties lately, and that's because that's when Hyde wants to give Mullins a break. That's when Heston Kjerstad's not in the lineup. That's when Ryan O'Hearn's not in the lineup, and so Cowser's been the guy against lefties, and he hasn't been starting against right-handed pitchers. So it kind of puts Cowser at a little bit of a disadvantage. And I'd like to see him get more opportunities against right-handed pitching to see if he can get right a little bit because he has been facing primarily left-handed pitching. Now, you can live with Mullins or Cowser's bat in the lineup because of their defense in center field, right? Their defense is solid. You can live with that bat in the lineup as long as the bats around him are not James McCann and Ramon Arias or Jorge Mateo, right? So that's where I think, if you've got Coby Mayo in that lineup or Connor Norby in place of Arias, and look, I understand trying to keep Adley off his feet as much as possible. You want him in the lineup every day, but it's been a lot. It's been a lot of James McCann, and McCann's not producing. So you can live with a worse bottom three in the lineup if the defensive production is there, but ideally it's just one weak link offensively, right? So I think that's why a lot of Orioles fans are clamoring for a Norby or a Mayo to get the call, because if your 7-hitter is Ryan Mountcastle or Jordan Westburg or Coby Mayo, you can live with your 8 or 9-hitter being Mullins or Cowser, even if they're scuffling at the plate, because that defense.
I was talking with my best friend the other day. He texted me during most Orioles games, especially when they're losing, and he was talking about how this offense stinks, and I was like, they need to call up Mayo, they need to call up Norby. You can live with Cedric Mullins being the weak link, batting 9th in your lineup, because he'll run into one occasionally. If he gets on base, he can steal a bag, and he'll play great defense in center field for the most part. But if you have all these other guys around him that are just absolutely tearing the cover off the ball, if you have, you could potentially have 5 guys in your lineup that could hit 30 home runs in a year, and then when Jackson Holliday is ready to go, that's a 6th guy who could potentially hit over 300 with 20 home runs in a season. You have the makings of a great lineup. It's just these guys got to be here. Look at what Norby and what Mayo are doing at AAA. What else do they have to prove? Are they not ready defensively? Okay. The defensive metrics for half your team are negative right now. So what are we doing? The problem isn't your defense. The problem is that you're not scoring runs. Let's get some bats up in this lineup that can score runs. Now, speaking of bats in the lineup that can score runs, we know that the All-Star selection happened last week. We know that Adley and Gunnar were voted in as starters for the All-Star team. Then Corbin Burns got voted in. There's a good chance he's going to start the game on Tuesday for the American League. But then over the weekend and coming into this week, we saw a couple more guys get added. Where are the notes for that?
I don't believe they're in the notes.
They were.
But
it's... I don't know. I don't know what happened to him. But I will tell you is that Jordan Westburg is... I specifically remember typing these out. I don't know where they went. Jordan Westburg is replacing Rafael Devers in the All-Star for the American League All-Star team. And it was announced 2 days ago that Anthony Santander... Man, I'm so happy for him because he's been a good player for a long time, and he finally makes an all-star team. Arguably the most powerful switch hitter in baseball right now. Has more home runs than any other switch hitter in baseball over the last 2+ seasons, if you include this year. Anthony Santander is replacing the injured Kyle Tucker in the all-star game for the American League as well. So the Orioles now have 5 all-stars. Now, it's great that they have the 5 all-stars. But we are seeing Craig Kimbrell be left off. I don't know what happened to these notes because they were 100% in here because I remember writing Craig Kimbrell. Craig Kimbrell
I promise I didn't delete anything. I don't know.
I don't know what the hell happened to them. I may have accidentally deleted them, or when I hit an undo button, maybe it undid that section. But Clay Holmes has made the All-Star team as a commissioner. God, I wrote all of this. I specifically remember it. As a commissioner's office pick over Craig Kimbrell. Craig Kimbrell has had far and away the better year across the board than Clay Holmes. Is Craig Kimbrell the biggest omission from this Orioles roster?
I think so. And Kimbrell certainly deserves it over Clay Holmes. I think you could name at least 5, maybe even up to 10 relievers who deserved it over Clay Holmes. You look at, Kenley Jansen's having a great year for Boston, Andres Munoz for Seattle. Even some of the middle relievers in Cleveland have been exceptional. There's plenty of guys who deserve some love before Clay Holmes. Now, Holmes for the first month and a half or so of the season was maybe the best closer in baseball, and then the last month or so he's run into some trouble, and his ERA is back up over 3, I believe. So when you look at that, there are certainly other guys who deserved it. Kimbrell, you would think, even Jansen, Kimbrell or Jansen, as the veteran who's near the end of his career. I talked a few weeks ago about how a couple years ago we saw Miguel Cabrera and Albert Pujols make the All-Star team, even when their numbers weren't there. But it was because it was their last season, and we knew they were on their way out, and they were future Hall of Famers. You can say the same for Jansen and Kimbrell. And to have Holmes in over there, it feels like Yankee favoritism. It feels like trying to get as many Yankees as possible.
The commissioner's office is in New York. The one thing I will say about getting guys over there, getting Cabrera and Pujols in. Pujols was phenomenal after that All-Star game. Like he was absolutely phenomenal for the Cardinals down the stretch, and helped them get into the postseason. With regards to Kenley Jansen and Craig Kimbrell, there hasn't been a better closer in baseball than the two of them the last 8 weeks. And so they actually have the numbers to be there, and they're not on their way out. They still got plenty left in the tank, in my opinion, and in their opinion, I'm sure.
Sure.
So they were, A, they're legends of the game that are still playing, and B, they have the numbers to back up an All-Star appearance. Like, I'm not going to get – the Orioles have 5 All-Stars. That's awesome. Like, I'm not going to get my panties in a bunch here. But the fact of the matter is Craig Kimbrell deserved to be there. Clay Holmes, for that matter, deserves to be there too. But I don't think he deserves to be there over Craig Kimbrell, and I think it is that New York and that Yankee bias.
A little bit, yeah. And it's frustrating, but at the same time, what can you do?
Bitch about it on the bat around. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Yeah, for sure.
I'm always down for that, Paul.
There's no Glenn Clark Radio Week in Review this week, folks, but because Glenn Clark was off at the beach. But the guys will be back this Monday with live shows throughout the week, starting at 10 a.m. daily. You can watch live on Facebook or YouTube and catch anything you've missed recently at glennclarkradio.com. Something, Ryan, that I completely forgot about because it's not as prominent a thing for the Orioles anymore is that the draft is on Sunday. Like last year, the Orioles had the 17th pick in the draft, and they took Enrique Bradfield. This year, they have the 22nd pick in the draft. You can watch it live, I think, on Facebook and YouTube tomorrow. I thought that was one of the cats, and I realized it was my daughter. You can watch it live, and then Masson will be re-airing it at, I believe, at 10 p.m. on Monday night, 10 or 10:30 p.m. on Monday night if you miss it. You can also watch it like on MLB Network. But the Orioles have the 22nd pick in the draft. I'm not too boned up on who they could be taking with that pick, although I did do a little bit of research last night and got a couple of players I want to talk to you a little bit about here. MLB Pipeline and Fangraphs suggested the Orioles would take right-handed pitcher Brody Brecht out of – is it Brecht? Have you heard this name before? Brody Brecht out of the University of Iowa. MLB.com straight up says, in part, when he's on, Brecht's fastball and slider are comparable to those of Paul Skeens, number 1 pick in last year's draft. He can sit at 96 to 99 miles per hour and touch 101 with his heater, which has explosive running action and superior shape to Skeens' fastball, though Brecht doesn't locate his nearly as well. All that said, his best pitch is a slider that parks at 87 to 89 miles per hour and peaks at 91 with plenty of horizontal and vertical action. Keith Law had this to say. Brecht is a project as a pitcher with the upside to justify taking him in the first round despite his current flaws. He can hit 100 regularly as a starter and shows a plus slider that he throws more than the heater because he can land it more consistently and gets a ton of whiffs on it. Brecht is extremely athletic and should be able to make some big adjustments, which he'll need to do, starting with his loose but long arm action to get him a delivery he can repeat. I get not wanting to take a guy who has control issues, but if you're talking about him in the same breath as Paul Skeens and you're taking him with a 22nd overall pick, I think that's a pick that would be fantastic for the Orioles. Your thoughts?
Yeah, he's not Paul Skeens is not going to be Paul Skeens. But if there are traits that are comparable to a guy like that, it's hard to overlook that. I think the thing that would hold the Orioles back from taking a pitcher like Brecht is the fact that they have not taken a first-round pitcher in the Elias era. They have hardly taken any pitchers in the top 4 to 5 rounds. I believe they took one, Jackson Baumeister, in the second last year. I could be wrong on that, but they haven't drafted pitchers high. It's interesting this year with Brad Selig taking a job with the Nationals. It'll be Matt Blood working alongside Mike Elias. Matt Blood, the director of player development, and now has more of a role in the scouting side of things. So it'll be interesting to see if there are any differences in philosophy between Selig and Blood. I will say I have the utmost faith in Matt Blood. I think he's done wonders for this organization. I think he's often overlooked as a massive part of this turnaround and the rebuild. I had him on my show a few years ago, back when Joey Ortiz and Kyle Bradish were still at A-ball, double-A. And he was telling me that those two guys, I asked him who were some overlooked prospects in the system who are going to make an impact and aren't getting enough love on these prospect boards. And the two names he gave me were Kyle Bradish and Joey Ortiz. And sure enough, Bradish, when healthy, has established himself as one of the better pitchers in baseball. Joey Ortiz having a heck of a rookie season over with Milwaukee before he got injured. So I have a lot of faith in Matt Blood and his evaluation of talent. I'm not sure the Orioles will go with a pitcher in the first round. There's a lot of bats, and we'll talk about a couple here in a second. But if you are going to go pitcher, Brecht certainly has some upside there, and I could see them going that
Baseball
route.
America mocks University of North Carolina outfielder Vance Honeycutt. Honeycutt is he was actually, I believe he was taken by the San Francisco Giants and opted to go to college instead because he wanted to play wide receiver in addition to playing baseball. He set the UNC freshman records in 2022 with 25 home runs and 29 stolen bases. His 28 home runs in 2024 are a school record for a single season, and the 65 career home runs are also a school record. Baseball America's Carlos Collazo said, Honeycutt falling to them, perhaps his collection of tools, athleticism, and defensive profile is too good to pass up. Baltimore's hitting development might be a dream scenario for Honeycutt as well. MLB.com had this to say. Honeycutt comes with at least plus tools across the board with one notable exception, his bat. He carried a 30% strikeout rate as a freshman, cut it to 20% as a sophomore when he wasn't nearly as productive, and has seen it shoot back up to 28% as a junior. He has a decent right-handed swing, but needs to refine his pull-heavy approach, do a better job of making in-zone contact, and cut down on his chases. Vance Honeycutt to the Orioles in 2022. What would Ryan Blake's reaction to that be?
I'd be cool with it. If he can't hit, that's a problem, right? He's gone through, it seems to me, a lot of swing changes in his college career, and that's been a factor in his dip and then his rise again in whip rate and strikeouts. But he is a pretty well-rounded player, and if the Orioles think they can get to the bat, then he's going to be a solid pick. He should be able to play a good center field. I don't see him moving off that position. But the big question is his bat, and I think the Orioles have typically gone with guys where the bat was more of a sure thing, and they've focused on developing other tools. So, look, if he's going to have a 50 grade bat, which I don't think he has right now, but he could, if he ends up with a 50 grade bat, he's going to be a major league regular. If he doesn't, he might never make it. There's a lot of guys who, if you can't hit, there might not be a spot for you. So there's a lot of upside with Honeycutt, but I think there's a pretty low floor as well. There's other outfielders, mocked kind of right around him that I could see the Orioles going with. Ryan Waldschmidt out of Kentucky seems like another good option, a little bit more well-rounded. Not as great defensively, but he already has a better hit tool than Honeycutt does. So that's a name I could see as well. Another college bat with good, batted ball data. So I could see them going that route in the outfield if they want to. But Honeycutt's a hard guy to pass up. Like Palazzo said in his quote, if he does fall to the Orioles, it's a name that if the Orioles have high on their board,
for sure,
be difficult to
for
pass
sure.
up.
And then Keith Law mocked high school shortstop Kellen Lindsey, saying this: "Nobody wants to miss on the next Trey Turner, and Lindsey looks the part. It's a similar build, 80 speed, good hands, a good right-handed swing, etc. His pitch recognition definitely lags behind the rest of his game at the plate. However, as he has far less experience facing good pitching than just about all of his peers in this draft after he missed the showcase circuit last summer due to injury. He's a huge upside play with a ton of downside risk in the bat." MLB.com says a premium athlete who can record 80 grade run times, Lindsey has already taken a big step forward in all facets of the game after deciding to stop playing football and focus on the diamond. He has a better feel for the game than some might think based on his multi-sport background. He has a short right-handed swing geared to making contact and sending line drives up the middle. He may never be a huge power guy, and he does need to add strength, but as he started to catch the ball out front, he's impacting the ball more with some pop to come. He has solid strike zone awareness with good swing decisions and takes walks against lesser competition. And then finally, Lindsey's defensive polish has also improved considerably this spring. He should be given every chance to stick at shortstop at least an average arm and more than enough range to make all the plays. Even though he's not convinced about the premium spot, no, he'll stick up the middle on the dirt, and the University of Florida recruit's name was popping up in first-round conversations as the spring season wore on. For me, I look at a guy like that, and of course, the first reaction is, well, the Orioles keep drafting shortstops, and they've got maybe the best shortstop in the game playing for them. But the reason you take shortstops is because they're the most athletic players on the field and they can play anywhere. And I know that the Orioles don't have anybody to play center field for them in the future if Enrique Bradfield doesn't pan out. This guy could always move to center field if he has to. If the Orioles take him, if he's got 80 grade speed, good hands, and he's got a good right-handed swing, that's something that could help the Orioles, especially needing right-handed bats for Camden Yards. I would not hate this pick. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I've scouted any of these players enough to know who's going to be a good pick and who's going to not be a good pick. What I will say is that the Major League Baseball draft, more than just about any other professional sport, is a complete crapshoot, even with the first overall pick. How many first overall picks have we seen never make it? It's one of those things where the gap from the minor leagues to the major leagues is so incredibly huge. There's just no way to tell if these players are going to be that. They're players that transcend the game. You see guys like a Gunnar Henderson, and you're like, or an Adley Rutschman, and you know that those guys are going to make it. But when you're picking in the bottom third of the first round, it's going to be a crapshoot every time. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know that this guy's going to be a good pick over this guy. I just want them to pick a good player when they. How do I put this? When they picked Enrique Bradfield last year, I wasn't enthused because I knew that he was a weak hitting outfielder. I like the speed, I like the defense, but I also want a guy that can hit the baseball, and he's got to prove that he can hit the baseball. As long as it's somebody who I know is going to be who has a track record of good hitting, I'll be okay with it.
Yeah, it's the Orioles also pick at 32, right? So it'll be interesting to see how they manage those first couple of picks. You can go a little under if you take a college outfielder at 22, and maybe you can give him a little bit of an underslot deal. That might open up a little more money at 32 to maybe take one of these high school guys who might fall. You look at Kellen Lindsey. There's a lot to like, especially with the run tool, the athleticism, and ability to play anywhere. And a lot of these high school shortstops aren't necessarily shortstops by trade. They're shortstops because they're the most athletic guy on their team. And I think that's the case with Kellen Lindsey. I think 80 grade speed at shortstop might be kind of a misuse of that ability. And kind of like, we talked about Vance Honeycutt, and I mentioned Ryan Waldschmidt, who's a guy who's ranked very close to him and could be, a similar, but, different kind of toolsy option. I see the same with Kellen Lindsey. There's another prep shortstop, Theo Gillen, who's right there as well. He's a left-handed bat. Lindsey's a righty. And Gillen seems a little more well-rounded, a little more of a sure thing with the bat. Not as much speed, but good speed. Closer to like a 60 or 65 grade on his speed, whereas that could be just as serviceable as an 80, depending on the on base ability. Gillen probably more of a second baseman than a shortstop, but a couple different options the Orioles could go. Like you said, I haven't really scouted many of these guys either. That era of my attempt to break into the baseball scouting world diminished when COVID happened and I moved back over here from Arizona. So I haven't been as in tune with the draft classes recently. What I do know is, and I said this at the beginning of the draft discussion, where I have the utmost faith in Matt Blood and Mike Elias. Their drafting track record has been exceptional. I know Blood had a bigger role in the draft back when he was with Elias and Sig in St. Louis. Whatever route they take, I have the utmost faith that they're going to get the top guy remaining on their board. And I have no reason to believe that pick would be anything less than good, right? We've seen all of their top picks the last few years, climb up the prospect ranks. And I think the Orioles are, going to go with the upside to have, another guy who's going to be in the top 50 prospects and have a chance to be a
I agree with you. I think that the Orioles are better than more good than bad when it comes to the draft. And we've seen it with them having the number one farm system in baseball 3 years running. It's something that we're going to look forward to, and whoever they pick, we'll convince ourselves that they're going to be a good player. And then we'll see what happens when they get to the big league level, and that's their professional careers begin in earnest. I want to remind you, today's show brought to you by the latest edition of Press Box, which is available now. On the cover, Maryland Governor Wes Moore sits down with Press Box to discuss the sports topics significant to his administration, including the stadium and grounds lease for the Orioles, the future of horse racing in the state, and much more. Also, this is our annual travel issue with information about sports tourism opportunities throughout the state that you and your family can take advantage of this summer. You can find the new Press Box all throughout the region, including at 60 Royal Farm stores, and read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. It was starting Monday 3 weeks ago. Ryan, you've got something you want to talk to us about for Soft Toss.
Yeah, Soft Toss with Ryan Blake, not to be confused with sounding off with Zach Goodman featuring Ryan Blake or whatever we would call it when I would fill in for Zach. The All-Stars were announced last Sunday. We talked a little bit about this already. There were some snubs, right? We kind of expected, we had Mountcastle and Ryan O'Hearn and Jordan Westberg and Anthony Santander all make the final vote for the starting positions. And none of those four were named as reserves, which was a little bit of a surprise. And we saw guys like David Fry and Marcus Simeon make it when, quite frankly, they probably shouldn't have. The Rangers did need a representative, so Simeon, I guess, kind of makes sense, but hasn't been close to one of the better second basemen in the league this year. So there were a lot of snubs, and naturally, Orioles fans were talking about that on social media. After it was announced that only Corbin Burns had made it aside from our two starters. And there were some responses on social media that, who cares? They need a break. It's a meaningless game, whatever. I get that, right? But at the same time, to act like because you don't care means that other people shouldn't care, especially the players, is utterly ridiculous. Yeah, and we saw Brandon Hyde make some comments that it was kind of disappointing that they only had that one alternate in Corbin Burns make the team from the jump. Players have contract incentives. They have bonuses that they can get. They have arbitration cases to deal with where making an all-star team will give them far more earning potential than not. So the players care, and it's not just the financial aspect of it; it's the emotional side of it, right? And we saw that from Santander and Westberg with their quotes after they were announced as injury replacements. Anthony Santander talked about how much of a blessing it is and how it reflects all the hard work that he's put in over the last several years to make it to this point. And to finally be rewarded for that is awesome. Jordan Westberg, this is a quote that was tweeted by Danielle Allen Tucker of the Baltimore Banner. Westbrook said, "I don't know if I could put it into words. It's just really cool to be able to call my wife and call my parents and hear the excitement in their voices. My heart was pumping. I was shaking. I kind of blacked out there for a second." If you can read that quote and still think that it doesn't matter, that we should be fine with players being snubbed from the All-Star game, you're wrong. I'm sorry. It matters to these guys. It's nice to get the recognition. It's cool for us as fans to see our players get the recognition. And so, shout out to Santander and Westberg for sneaking in his reserves there. It was deserved. It should have been a foregone conclusion from the beginning. But I'm glad that they're there. I know they care that they're there. I know their teammates are proud of them and are glad that they are there as well. So
I agree with you. And I got into it with somebody who kept saying, I don't care. And it's like, who kept saying, who cares? And I said, just because you don't care doesn't mean that other people don't care. I catch myself doing that when I'm like listening to 105.7 The Fan in the car and they start talking about baseball or hockey. And I just go, who cares? And I'm like, I don't care. But there's a lot of people that do care. In this instance, the majority of people care because you want your team to be recognized because your team is one of the best teams in baseball and you want that recognition. The players deserve to be recognized for the hard work they put in, for being part of back-to-back really superior baseball teams. You saw how much Brandon Hyde cared. You see how much of these players care from these quotes. And people are saying, well, yeah, but they should take the week of the All-Star break off so they can make the World Series run. Do you think really taking off on Tuesday is going to prevent them from making a World Series run? Like Gunner's the only one participating in the home run derby, and he's 23 years old. He's going to be fine. Corbin Burns may pitch an inning in the All-Star game. Jordan Westberg may get one at bat. These guys. It's not like these guys are playing, in a tournament where they're playing 9 innings 3 days in a row over the All-Star break. That's not what's happening. They're probably going to play a fraction of a game, and you're also looking at the fact that they get to be recognized by their peers and be around that environment. I went to the All-Star game in 1993 when it was in Camden Yards. I was 8 years old when I was about to turn 9 when the All-Star game came here, and I still remember it as just being it was ungodly hot that day. I remember that, but I just remember the environment being incredible, and that was as a fan. For these players getting to be on the field during the home run derby and that all 4 of those Orioles players can be down there cheering on Gunner in the home run derby, and then to see them playing that game on. By the way, they should all be wearing their jerseys, not the All-Star game jerseys. Yeah. And they get uglier every year. What are we doing?
I want to buy a Westberg All-Star jersey, but they are
terrible.
It's like red and terrible. Tacky. It's just not a good look. The National League's fine. It's like a blue and black kind of. The National League's okay, but the American League, it looks like Great Britain's uniform.
Well, I don't understand why we keep trying to reinvent the wheel with these uniforms. It's literally just if they had the Team USA colors, like a Team USA type of look, I would be fine with that. If it said American, it was a blue, the red, white, and blue color scheme and all that, but it was really basic, mostly navy or something like that. I'd be okay with that, but they keep trying to make these things that are more modern. It's they're just ugly, man. Cut the crap. But it's going to be a great experience for the players there. And I think that I care. Most people care. And even if I didn't care, who cares that I don't care or do care? It's about the players and their recognition, and well deserved.
By the way, they still get 2 days off after the All-Star game. It's not like this is their off day. It's not. They're off on Monday. I mean, not Gunner, but they're off on Monday, and then they might play a few innings on Tuesday.
Yep.
And then they're off for 2 more days. That's
and then Corbin Burns' case, he's not going to pitch on Friday for the Orioles. If he starts he might if he starts the All-Star game, but he might not even go because he just had twin girls, and there's a part of him that wants to be home with his family. And so unless if he doesn't get the starting nod, he might not go.
He might not. And I think there's a good chance that Tariq Skubal gets the nod. He's been spectacular. I think if they want to give it to someone who's maybe has more of a track record, I could see them giving it to Burns because of his seniority there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But in any event, it's a great opportunity for these guys. I'm excited to see them out there having a good time. And man, bottom of the first, Gunnar Henderson leading off against Paul Skeens. That's going to be cinema. I'm so excited for that. Hopefully Gunnar gets the nod.
I saw somebody tweet out, Paul Skeens is starting the All-Star game, and it's likely he'll face Gunnar Henderson, Juan Soto, Aaron Judge in that first inning. That's going to be awesome. Yeah.
That's what baseball's all about.
Remember at the end of the World Baseball Classic, the final out was Shohei Ohtani versus Mike Trout. Like, it was awesome. That was and Trout
stuff.
struck out, and you kind of knew that was what was going to happen because Shohei's a freak. But it was just awesome to watch that. Like, I loved every bit of it, and I can't, like, I'm more excited for this All-Star game than I usually am because of stuff like this. Like, it's just going to be a ton of fun.
Yeah. What are the chances Gunnar bounces out to second base?
Oh my gosh! What are the chances Gunnar goes deep on the first pitch? Like
higher than zero.
Just wants to pump 101 mile an hour fastball down the middle to get the game started. Oh, he hit 101, and Gunnar hits it 115 out the right field.
Gunnar sitting on it. Yeah.
I can't miss the start of that game.
It's going to be fun either way. Like, obviously, I'm rooting for Gunnar in that matchup, but if Paul Skeens blows Gunnar away on 3 pitches, it's still going to be like, damn, that was cool.
Right? I don't know that I'm going to think it was so cool externally, but.
Yeah, but like if you put aside, like, because I'm an Orioles fan, but I'm also a baseball fan, right? And if you can put aside your team allegiance for a game that doesn't matter in the standings and just focus on the baseball side of it, like I said, obviously I want Gunnar to come out on top, but like that's just
absolutely. And I think that's what we're all looking forward to. Can't wait for the All-Star festivities. It's my favorite All-Star festivities. Like the NBA, I mean, NHL is pretty cool from what I heard. I'm just not a hockey fan. Like I'm not a DC fan in anything, and like I don't hate the Capitals, I don't hate the Wizards, but like I can't get into them. But I heard the NHL All-Star festivities are really, really cool. And don't they play like 3-on-3 hockey? Like a bunch of like a 3-on-3 tournament or something like that. That's really cool. But the NBA and the NFL have a long way to go to although the NFL is getting a lot better, in my opinion. All right. AL East wrap-up. Yandy Diaz had 3 hits. Alex Jackson scored twice, and Taj Bradley continued his run of dominance with 7 scoreless innings, while the Rays bullpen struck out 5 of the 6 batters they faced to complete the shutout over the Guardians 2-0. Cole, is it Reagans or Ragans? Cole Reagans was his usual dominant self, allowing only an RBI double to Cedane Rafaela en route to 7 strong innings. Meanwhile, a second inning error led to 3 unearned runs charged to Sox starter Cooper Criswell. Bobby Witt Jr. and MJ Melendez would later add solo shots to pad the Royals' lead as they took down the Red Sox 6-1. And finally, the Jays took a 4-2 lead into the bottom of the 8th, but reliever Trevor Richards surrendered a game-tying single to Alec Thomas, and Chad Green allowed what proved to be too much traffic in the 9th as a game which featured 5 sacked flies, ended fittingly, the last of which being the walk-off run in a 5-4 Diamondbacks victory.
How many times do you see a team score? So the 3 of those 5 sack flies were the Jays, and their other run came on an RBI ground out. So all 4 of their runs were driven in without a hit. The D-backs added a pair of sack flies of their own. A lot of productive outs in that game.
It's wild when you consider the fact that Mark Trumbo in 2016 hit 47 home runs and had exactly 0 sacrifice flies. I think he had 1 in his first 2 seasons in Baltimore, because I think he had 1 the next year.
Wow.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and let you, Ryan, do the today's game info.
Sure. We already talked about Grayson Rodriguez. He comes into today's game 11-3 with a 3.52 ERA this season. He will take the mound for the Orioles this afternoon. Rodriguez picked up the victory in his last start on Sunday when he allowed 3 runs in 6 innings against the Athletics to pick up his 11th victory. Grayson will be searching for his 12th, which would tie Chris Sale for the Major League lead in wins this year. In his last start versus New York on April 29th, he shut out the Bronx Bombers on 5 hits over 5 2/3 innings, walking and striking out 3 each to pick up the victory. He is yet to allow a run versus the Yankees in 2 career starts, covering 12 innings. The Yankees will counter with Luis Gil, who is 9-5 with a 3.27 ERA this season, after allowing 16 earned runs in just 9 2/3 innings pitched his previous 3 starts, one of which came against the Orioles. He'll return to form in his last outing, striking out 9 while walking none and allowing just 1 run over 6 2/3 innings in a win over the Boston Red Sox. When Gil last faced the Orioles, he allowed 7 runs on 8 hits in just 1 1/3 innings pitched in a game the Orioles would go on to win 17-5. God, I miss that offense. What do we think the O's lineup is going to look like? Oh, you wanted to let me handle this one. I did not type out a lineup, but it doesn't matter. We all know Heel is going 6 or 7 and 2 runs or less with the way this offense is going. Those are Paul's words, not mine. I think the Orioles light up Luis Heel.
I don't know, man. He was really good in his last start against Boston. Like we said, 6 and 2/3 innings, 1 run, striking out 9 with no walks. I think that he's going to come in with a better game plan than he had against the Orioles the last time. Look, I believe in the Orioles' ability to score 12 runs in the first inning, but I also believe in their ability to look like a fish out of water, just flopping around in a game. Is what they've been doing for the last 32 innings. So we know Henderson's going to lead off. Is Rutschman going to catch day game after night game? I guarantee we see James McCann in the lineup again for some stupid reason.
I'm not sure because we got, I think, a left.
Oh, that's a great point.
So we've seen it before where McCann has started back-to-back games.
Yeah, he just started back-to-back games against the Cubs.
Hopefully not.
And he actually didn't have a bad series against the Cubs offensively. Like, he had a couple of hits in that series, but still, like, the lineup, I don't know what the lineup's going to look like today. I think I know. No, Kjerstad might not. We don't know what's going to happen with Kjerstad. I mean, he seemed to get up and be fine, but if he has a concussion, he's not playing. He's probably not playing regardless because he took a 97-mile-an-hour fastball off the ear hole in the 9th inning yesterday. So you're going to see Colton Cowser in there, probably Austin Hayes. So maybe Cowser in center field since he didn't play last night. Maybe Hayes in left field, Santander in right field, O'Hearn DHing. Or O'Hearn at first base, maybe give him Mountcastle took some nasty looking swings last night. Like he looked like the guy that we saw before he went on the IL for vertigo last year, chasing sliders, had no chance of being strikes. We'll see what's going to happen. I'm very disenchanted with this team right now. If you can't tell, just the offense has been so bad, and like they're crawling into the All-Star break. Like just win one of these games to keep the first. I want them to win the next two. Obviously, I want them to win the division. And I want them to like go into the All-Star break with a 3-game lead. But just going to the All-Star break with a lead in the division, that's really all that you can ask for at this point, considering how poorly they've been playing. And we'll see what happens coming in after the All-Star break. I just hope that my buddy said the Orioles need to make some moves during the All-Star break. I'm like, they're not going to. They're not going to trade for anybody. Maybe they'll call up Kobe Mayo. Maybe Ryan will take him again and take the rake. Or maybe I'll do it this week inexplicably. Who knows? But it's they've got to do something because they're crawling to the halfway, the midway point. It won't put it that way because it's not halfway.
Yeah, you got to take one of these last two. You can't go into the All-Star break at this point down a game to the Yankees. You can't go in on a 6-game losing streak. So you got to find a way to take one of these last two and avoid the sweep. But I will say that and it's not really a fun thing because we've been struggling. But even if the Yankees sweep the Orioles, we'll still be tied in the season series. The Orioles have set the tone against this team all year. They took the first 2 series 5-2 in total. So they could sweep and still be 5-5 on the season, but you want to go in 6-4 against these Yankees with a lead.
Absolutely. All right. While high school sports season has come to an end for the year, County Sports Zone will be providing great high school sports content all summer. For the latest in coaching changes, football previews, and more, check out countysports.zone, proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. All right. What's on tap this week for the Orioles? The Orioles will wrap up their series with the Yankees and the first half of the national broadcast on Roku on Sunday morning. First pitch slated for 11:35 a.m., which means I've got to download the Roku app. It'll be Dean Kramer for the Birds, looking to bounce back from his wretched start on Tuesday against the Cubs. Veteran Carlos Rodon takes the hill for New York, searching for his 10th win. Rodon started the year 9-2 with a 2.93 ERA, but has lost 5 consecutive starts, pitching to a 10.57 ERA in the process to see his ERA for the year balloon to 4.63. The O's will then be off for the All-Star break until Friday when they begin a 3-game series in Arlington with the Rangers. Ryan, do we think any Orioles All-Stars stay in Texas after the game on Tuesday?
I can see it. I think it's, it depends how tired they are, right? If they want to really enjoy their off days, maybe you limit the travel. I know Jordan Westberg's from not too far from Arlington, maybe an hour or two south. So I could see him, hanging around there, going home. I don't know, man. It's interesting. It's nice that the Orioles are the team that gets to play in Texas and kind of have that limited travel. I don't know. I mean, I know these guys want to see their families. I'm not sure how many of them have been able to see their wives or their children regularly. Of course, Adley doesn't have a wife or a kid yet. I don't think Gunnar has any kids that we know of.
Adley's
but,
not married.
We'll see what happens. Adley had a girlfriend. He was dating an Olympic runner, I believe. There were rumors that they might have broken up. I don't know. I know he deleted his Instagram. I don't know. It was like one morning where Twitter was talking about it. But no, Adley's a single man or maybe in a relationship. Of course, Corbin Burns just had twins, so I'm sure he's going to want to go home and see his wife a little bit. But who knows, man? It could be a matter of convenience.
I can see them inviting their family to join them for the All-Star game and then just turning into like a little family vacation and staying in Texas or, Yeah. For sure.
And then hit the motel on Friday. I don't know. Maybe the Orioles will make accommodations for some guys to get there early and watch the All-Star game or something. Guys who aren't planning on going home or anything like that. It'll be interesting to see. I will say, though, going back one bullet point here, Carlos Rodon has struggled mightily lately, and there have been some shots of him, maybe a little emotional, in the dugout. Make him cry.
People tried to say that Garrett Cole. I keep saying people. Like, who are these people? But you see stuff on social media, like they were saying Garrett Cole crying after getting rocked. And it was like, dude, it was 107-degree heat index that day. He was clearly wiping sweat from his brow. He was not crying. Like, Garrett Cole is not the dude that's going to be standing on the mound crying. I don't know much about Carlos Rodon other than he used to be really good, and sometimes he's really good, but a lot of times he's really bad. He's been injured a lot. But I don't know a lot about him personally. He was 100% crying in that dugout, like 100% emotional.
Yeah, and I want to have some sympathy there because who knows if he's dealing with something in his personal life that's maybe trickling into his performance. But if he was just crying because he had a bad game, then make him cry again. And if not, if he's dealing with something at home, if his wife is mad at him for something, I don't know. I wish him all the best in his personal life. But make him weep on the mound. That'd be fun.
Yes, I 100% agree. I don't think. I was looking up Adley's stats. We won't get into Adley's stats because they don't matter. Ryan took Kobe Mayo, who played all of his games for Norfolk and had a nice week for Norfolk, but AAA stats don't count. So I won. Take the rake. And
I took a risk.
So what should we do for take the rake? Because they have 2 games. 3 games until we pick next. Now we always do one for opening day, and that's usually like 1 game, right? So should we?
They have what? 2 games. I think what we should do, Paul, and if you disagree, that's totally fine. What if we each take an All-Star, and if an All-Star has a hit in the All-Star game or wins All-Star MVP, they get take the rake. What do you think about that?
I think that there's too much of a chance for a tie there. So I think we can do take the rake, and I think we can do that, right? So I think we can do take the rake, and how about, or we just do it that the guys that we take for take the rake are all-stars, and we have 2 separate competitions. One's the best all-star performance, and the other one's take the rake, but it's the same guys.
Okay,
so
I'm good with that.
Obviously, I'm going to take Gunnar Henderson. Home run derby. Notwithstanding, the only way that the home run derby can count is if Gunnar whips.
All right, I'll allow it. So I guess give me Adley. We know he's starting. There's only 2 catchers on the roster. Although I guess David Fry can catch if they need him to, but it's just Adley and Salvi who are the catchers.
That David Fry is going to catch in that game. Like it's going to be like a campy thing. He's going to catch.
Yeah. You also, however, know that Bobby Witt's going to get plenty of run at shortstop. So I'm not sure if Gunnar gets more than a couple ABs there. Of course, Adley probably only has 2 as well. He might be hitting, the lower half of that lineup anyway. But I'll take Adley. I think he's a pretty safe bet to be at least halfway decent.
Yeah, I can see Adley going deep in the All-Star game. It would be an Adley thing to do. You just feel like he's like kind of that guy that does stuff like that. You know what I mean?
I was hoping he'd do it in his closest major league team to a hometown in Seattle last year. That would have been cool for him to have a good
Well,
All-Star performance. But
he did
yeah,
switch hit
maybe
at the home run derby, so that was
he
really
did.
cool.
That was sick.
And,
Imagine Gunnar
and,
going up and hitting
and like
right-handed
his
for his
first like
last 30
5
seconds.
swings were home runs from the right side too.
I think his first 7 were homers. He went 7 of 8 in bonus time, and I think it was only the last one.
Yeah,
that
he put on a
wall.
performance for sure. Now
That was awesome.
Now keep in mind that these
so
are the
cool.
same guys that we're also picking for Take the Rake. So we'll do the separate All-Star competition, and then what Gunnar does in the home run derby, if he wins, it doesn't have an impact on the All-Star game. I don't know that it's fair because I think Gunnar is going to win the home run derby.
If he wins, I'll give it to you because that's awesome, right? I'm rooting for that, right?
Yeah.
Unless Adley goes like 9 for 9 in these 3 games with 4 home runs and wins All-Star MVP. But other than that, yeah, I think I'll give you the nod if Gunnar wins the home run derby. Speaking of the derby, before we get to viewer interaction here, can we talk a little bit about the derby field and our rooting interest in the derby? I mean, obviously Gunnar is one, right? I think for me, it rubs me the wrong way. 2 guys that are in the derby. Marcell Ozuna has a shady past, to say the least. He's got a DUI. He's got a couple of
the DUI. I don't care about. It's the domestic violence stuff that I have an issue with.
Yeah, and I think a factor, and maybe he has or had an alcohol problem, and that played a factor. Not that that's an excuse, but I do think that because there was also an instance where he was the victim and his wife was the perpetrator, right? So I think there was a lot of a toxic relationship in his past. And it seems to me that he and his wife have worked things out, that he's gotten his personal life under control. He seems to be a really good teammate. But it's hard to look at a guy with a past history of domestic violence and want any type of success. So it rubs me the wrong way that Major League Baseball is putting him on that stage with a chance to do some damage. And then Pete Alonso, he's won it twice already. He had way too much fun beating cancer survivor Trey Mancini. And I know, like, obviously you still want to try to win the Derby, right? I think he got like $1 million for winning the Derby, something like that. But like, dude was like dancing and if I wasn't such a big Trey Mancini fan, I wouldn't care. Like, you kind of need that energy. But as an Orioles fan who really wanted to see Mancini win, I was like, all right,
for sure.
Like, so I don't like and the fact that Alonso said he wouldn't do the Derby unless he was an All-Star, and then he makes it in over Christian Walker, who's had a far better season at first base for the D-backs. I don't like that Alonso's in. So Alonso and Marcell Ozuna are definitely at the bottom of my rooting list. Adolis Garcia with Texas, it's cool that he's doing it in front of his home fans. But he's kind of a boring pick to me personally. Same with Teoscar Hernandez, former Blue Jay. Both of those guys always rake against me when I'm against them in fantasy. So I don't really want either of them to win. Bobby Witt Jr. would be cool, but I don't want him to beat Gunnar and screw the Royals. I'm still not over 2014.
I can't get on board with Alec Bohm. How's the guy with 11 home runs end up there?
Yeah, I mean, I like Alec Bohm. He's probably like 3rd in my pecking order.
I mean, it'd be cool, I guess, because he's got 11 home runs, and see that guy win it would be cool. But obviously, I want Gunnar to win. I'd actually be okay with Teoscar Hernandez winning, and I'll tell you why. Because when the Blue Jays were at their best a few years ago, he was the best hitter on their team. He was like the best overall hitter on their team, and that includes Vladdy. Like he was really, really good. And then they just traded him away like he wasn't the player that he was. And it was like, oh, he's on the downside of his career. And he's like the heart and soul of that Dodgers team right now. And I just think that would be really cool for Teoscar Hernandez to go out there and win it if Gunnar doesn't win it. These are all if Gunnar doesn't win. Pete Alonso, I'm with you. I don't need to see a big lumberjack win his third home run derby. Bobby,
he's such a hardo.
He's such a what? Hardo? What does that mean?
Hardo, yeah, like it's I guess it's kind of hard to explain. Like he cares too much, and he wants to like this is my thing.
yeah.
Like, none of you guys should be like that
I
kind
get
of
that.
attitude.
I get that. Marcelo Ozuna, if he's figured it out, like I have a pretty strong stance against anybody that commits domestic violence. But like Ray Rice, for example, has done everything right since his domestic violence incident. There are people that like I'm my buddy's super excited because he has an opportunity to have Terrell Suggs on his show, on his podcast this year. And on the one hand, he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but on the other hand, we can't just pretend that the stuff that he did to his girlfriend, he didn't do, so for me that there's it's hard for me to root for anybody. Now, if Osuna has come out and said and done all the right things, and like the things that he said are backed up by his actions, okay, I can take a different look at him. But like, if you just are a guy that does this crap and you don't seem to care about it, then I can't get on board with you. And then Bobby Witt, I don't want Bobby Witt to beat Gunnar at anything,
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. If Gunnar wasn't,
I like Bobby Witt,
but
but I don't want him to beat Gunnar at anything, and so I will not root for him in the home run derby. No chance. All right, so take the rake is no.
He's like
no, man.
No,
Jose Ramirez.
Jose Ramirez guy.
This is so vain of me to say. Nothing about him looks like he should be good at baseball to me, and so like it makes me not like him. Like there is nothing. He doesn't look athletic at all. Like how does this guy steal 20+ bases every year? How does he play good defense at third base? How does he like the home runs I can see, but like the other aspects of his game that he's really good at, it's like, dude, you're just like this roly-poly, like you look like you've never been in a weight room. How are you fast and like agile? What is this? It just doesn't make
I don't know, man.
It doesn't make sense to me. And I don't know. Something about him rubbed me the wrong way when the Orioles played them the other week. And so like I'm just like, he can go away. Jose Ramirez can go away. Now, if he played for the Orioles, I'd love him to be like, no, he's awesome. What? No. But I don't know.
What did he do?
I don't know, man. Just the way that series went, he had a couple of big home runs against the Orioles, and I don't have an issue with people celebrating home runs or bat flips or anything like that unless they do it against the Orioles. Then I'm like throwing at their neck next at bat, not actually throwing at their neck. Now I sound like a Yankee fan, but you get what I'm saying. Like I don't want you showing my team up, and I felt like he showed them up a couple of times, but that's just a personal issue with me. Anyway, viewer interaction. Pigtown Sports says O's are 13 for 103 versus Yankees right-handed pitching at home this year. Now they've played 5 games at home. Is it 5 games at home against the Yankees so far this year? So it's
was the 4-game series was here,
and then last night. So 5 games, 13
for
for 103 versus Yankees right-handed pitching at home this year. That's I was going to try and minimize that, but that's like actually a big deal.
It's hard to figure out what that really like. It's an interesting it's a split within a split, right? So it kind of feels a little on the nose,
I know exactly what you're saying. It's like if you were to say Gunnar Henderson hits 400 on Tuesday night games when the Orioles play the Red Sox, like something like that. Like it's something like it.
Like obviously those aren't good numbers, and sure that's an issue. But
how are they against? How are they against Yankees right-handed pitching in general? Because they scored 17 runs off against a number of righties in that Thursday afternoon game.
Right.
So are their numbers overall good?
Yeah, like these numbers clearly don't account for what they did to Luis Gil in New York, right? So like it's hard to figure out if that's a trend or just a fluky
thing that and maybe right-handers go 10 for 30 today. Like who knows? Ken Zales, KZ, love KZ. Thanks for tuning into the show, KZ. Agree, too many called third strikes, including Gunnar. Yeah, when this Orioles offense really starts to struggle, it's weird because they're overly aggressive early in the count and way too passive late in the count.
Weird.
You'll see a lot of first or second pitch outs, a lot of 3-pitch at bats, and then you'll see them get like 3-2 and take a pitch that is way too close to look at. And that happened with Gunnar twice last night, in my opinion. So, yeah, Gunnar definitely is included in that when we say that there's way too many called third strikes. Pigtown Sports, do we think there is something in the clubhouse that's dragging the team down around this trade deadline and attitudes? No, there's something. I think it's just a slump, and I think that they look like they're defeated. They look defeated. I don't think it has to do with the clubhouse culture. I think that they're all just irritated at how much they're struggling, and that as soon as they get down by a couple of runs, they look defeated to me.
Yeah, I just think they're pressing. I don't think it's I think the clubhouse culture of this Orioles team is among the best in baseball, if not the best. So I don't think there's an internal issue. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe there is. I'm not sure. But I really think it's just a slump and a matter of we're down by 2 runs early again. Is it going to be another one of those nights? And then they're all trying to do too much at the plate, and it's a ripple effect. But I'm not sure there's anything internal that we need to worry about.
Pigtown Sports says Trevino scored, Soto got the hit. I feel like I remembered it being Trevino being safe, because I remember but apparently no, it was Trevino that scored and it was Soto that was safe. Even if it's Soto, you can't allow that to happen. Why did I think it was Trevino? Maybe because Trevino scored, I guess. But I was certain it was Trevino. Anyway, you can't allow that rundown to happen. The botched rundown, you cannot allow that to be the case. If you're going to cut that throw off, you better be damn sure that guy's going to be out. And Mountcastle cut it off because he knew that Soto was halfway to second base when he was cutting it off. So they're going to get the guy out, but then nobody covers first base. It's got to be an out there. You have to have an out one way or the other. Pigtown Sports says Trevino was hosed at the plate. Was a bad cut by Mountie. I just don't think that you can assume that he's going to be out at the plate. I mean, it looked like that throw might be carrying Rutschman up the line a little bit to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it was a definite out. I think they had a chance, but it's so hard to read. But you could definitely make the case that there would have been a play at the plate for sure. I don't think it was a surefire out, but in any event, ideally
he would have been safe.
Cut that run off.
He would have been safe. He was starting his slide as Mountcastle was catching that ball. He would have been safe. I don't think that the Orioles had a chance of getting him. I'm watching it right now. Well, no, Mountcastle cut it off. He was probably about 20 feet from the plate when Mountcastle cut it off, but Mountcastle cut it off in his hand, right here. That throw was carrying Rutschman up the line. I don't think he's out at the plate. I don't think he is.
Yeah.
Randall Fricase.
Not that it really
Randall's our
first
mattered. 7 comments, but he's like our 6th today. Time for new blood in the lineup. Mullins has to go. I don't think Mullins has to go, but you can't have Mullins, McCann, and Arias, or Mullins, McCann, Mateo in the same lineup. You just can't.
Right. That's the whole thing. Like we talked about earlier, if the bottom third was a little stronger overall, you can live with a weak hitting, good defensive player in that lineup. But when he's flanked by 2 guys who are also struggling, it's a lot more glaring. So I don't think it's as much of a Mullins issue as it is we don't have the right guys in the bottom third of the order issue.
Pigtown says, just started raining. I don't think that was intentional. I don't think anybody thinks that the throw. I mean, some people think that the throw that the hit by pitch for Kjerstad was intentional. I don't think it was. And I certainly, and even if it was intentional, I don't think he's trying to hit him in the head. I don't think, you're talking about potentially killing somebody. I don't think he's trying to do that. And 97, I think that
Suarez didn't throw at Judge. Aiken didn't throw at Torres. Holmes didn't throw at Kjerstad. It's just, if anything in this entire sequence was intentional,
Ferguson throwing at Gunnar. Ferguson threw a Gunnar.
Yeah. That's it.
Randall says O's need to wake up and win this series. Look, just win a game. Go into the All-Star break with a lead in the division. Yeah, I want you to win the series, but let's win a game first. Win today, and then we'll talk about winning the series tomorrow. But and then Scott Woods, he's talking about my description. In the description for the show, I put 3-1 because that 4th run scored in the 9th inning. And
Oh yeah.
I was doing the description with like 2 minutes before the show started, and I accidentally typed 3-1. Randall,
Could he see that?
you can see it when you're
You know,
watching the show. You can see it on Facebook. It's right there next to like ours is just the studio, but
oh, you're okay. You're not talking about our show notes. I thought you were
the
talking about
description
that.
for the show on Facebook
Okay.
and YouTube. It's in there. You can see it. Yankees pitching has a high hit rate for some reason. It's weird. It is super weird to me that they've hit more batters than any team in baseball, and they cry the most when their players get hit. Like it's weird to me. I mean, Judge came out and said, you know, it's just stuff that happens. We've hit a number of their guys. They've hit some of ours. So they know that they've hit a lot of people. I think it's more fan driven. They were just pissed. Like the Yankees were just pissed off because Judge got hit in that first game of the series. That's what they were mad about. But like, I think the players understand that like their teams hit a lot of guys. I think it's more fan fueled than anything else about players being hit. Randall says Kelsey should be a trade chip or sent back to the minors. They're not going to send him to the minors, I think, because of his defense. And I think that it's volatile right now. I think I think that sending him to the minors sends him a message, and that maybe he's not in the position to handle right now, if that makes sense. He's been struggling at the plate, and like, I don't know, when he got sent back down last year, his batting average dropped 30 points at AAA. He was in 330 when he got called up, and the end of the season at 300. Now he was great in the postseason, but I just don't want to mess with his confidence too much. Keep him as like a fourth outfielder right now. Hope that he figures it out. I don't think that Kowser is going to be terrible for his career. I just think he's been terrible for 3 months, and we need to stop pretending that his peripherals matter as much as people are pretending that they do. He's hitting 180 over his last 70 games. Like, that's not okay. It's not okay.
Yeah. I think he's going to readjust at some point. I'm not sure sending him back to the minors is the right thing at this point. I can see them floating his name out there on the trade market, but I think it's too early to give up on Kowser. He's a 5th overall pick. He hasn't been in the majors for a calendar year yet. Like, I know it's been an extended slump. I know that he's been struggling, but he's a guy you got to give a little bit of a longer leash to, in my opinion.
This is a great question from Adit. Does Stowers come up if Heston is on the concussion list? Probably. But I could also see them calling up Mayo or Norby, because you've got Santander, you've got O'Hearn, you've got Mullins, you've got Kowser, you've got Hayes. You've got guys that can play the outfield, and maybe this is an opportunity to get one of those bats that's tearing it up at AAA, like that, and actually hitting for high average too. Maybe it's an opportunity to get one of those guys up here. Norby's played some corner outfield. I think that inevitably Mayo ends up in the outfield because of his arm. I don't think they want to waste that arm at first base. I think he'll play some first base, but I think he's going to play some outfield in his big league career for sure. I could see them calling Mayo up to the big leagues if Kjerstad goes on the concussion list. But I also think that if Kjerstad was going on the concussion list, it would have been announced by now. Usually when they have an afternoon game or a 6:30 game, these things are announced by, like roster moves are announced by like 10 a.m. It's 11:30 and we haven't heard anything.
Yeah.
So I think that Kjerstad's probably okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. You know, he might rest the next couple of days. He's not going to start tomorrow against the lefty unless Hyde has done a complete 180 on that for some reason. But yeah, Heston's a guy who's when healthy, he should be in the lineup every day, as far as I'm concerned. He's shown that plenty since he was recalled from AAA a few weeks ago. Yeah, I could see Stowers being the guy, but I think, like you said, Paul, it's more likely that it's one of the infielders. They already have 5, even without Kjerstad, they have 5 guys on the roster who can play in the outfield. I'm not sure they'd bring Stowers up to be the 6th. He wouldn't get much playing time even if he is the guy. I think it's more likely that we either see Norby recalled or Mayo given a shot. And I think if they do call Mayo, I think if they do end up promoting Mayo, it's not going to be a temporary thing. It's going to be all right, this is your time to get some run, and we can see what you're made of at the big league level.
And if Kjerstad is on the concussion IL and he comes back, I don't think they send him down. What's the corresponding move? I don't think they send Kjerstad down either. What's the corresponding move when Kjerstad comes back? Is it Kowser that goes down?
If it was on the roster, I think it's either it's either a Cowser option or, I mean, maybe there's a trade by then. I kind of doubt it. I think at some point, and this could open up a whole new can of worms, but I think at some point you have to have a serious discussion about what does Ramon Arias bring us that Kobe Mayo does not. Who would we rather have on the roster? And yeah, maybe it's a little better defense, right? But the bat is just worlds better with Mayo. So I think at some point you have to look in the mirror and say, all right, yeah, Arias won us a Gold Glove. He's been on the team for a few years, but he's not getting it done offensively. And I feel weird saying this after he just drove in our only run in the last 4 days. But I mean, it's true. It's true. One swing doesn't change.
And you know, when a guy like Ryan Ripken, who's always saying the Orioles are going to be fine, and these guys are good players, and this, that, and the other. When he's saying Mayo has nothing left to prove, he should be here soon. When that's being said by a guy like Ryan Ripken, it's becoming increasingly obvious that this guy should be here at this point. All right, Randall, I'd bring up Mayo and Stowers to replace Cowser and Mullins. Enough is enough. They're not getting rid of Cowser. They're not sending Cowser down, and they're not gonna trade Mullins. I just don't think they're trading Mullins. I don't think he has much trade value, if I'm being perfectly honest. Maybe a team like the Marlins, but now you're getting rid of maybe your best outfielder. I just don't think that that's happening.
Maybe one.
Agree about calling. Daniel Pitt says agree about calling up Mayo and Norby. It's so infuriating to see them mashing AAA and knowing they'd help this team right now. It is, and I get it that they like the defense that Jorge Mateo has provided at second base, and they love his speed. But that guy cannot be an everyday player anymore. Like the bat does this with his bat every year. This was his longest stretch of not being completely worthless at the plate. He got into like mid-June, hitting about 250, which is really good for Jorge Mateo, but he's hitting like 120 his last 2 weeks. The bat, I think longer than that now. The bat is what it's always going to be. I just don't see him ever being his bat being everyday caliber anymore. I just don't see I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. I don't need it. Yeah. A great bench guy. Mateo's a guy I would love to have off the bench, especially in the postseason when speed can change a game in the blink of an eye. Definitely brings more flexibility than a Ramon Arias does. But I agree completely, Daniel. It's tough watching these guys absolutely dominate AAA and not get a chance when one of Arias or Mateo has been in the lineup every single day.
It's a fact. Daniel said Jackson Bellmeister draft 2023 Baltimore Orioles round CBB overall pick 63. So you were correct, Ryan. He was a second round pick because the CBA is technically a first round pick. The CBB is technically a second round pick.
Yeah, the competitive balance rounds for those who may not understand.
Thoughts on Chase McDermott from Facebook user. Man, was that your name? Is it like your birth name? Thoughts on Chase McDermott. I've heard several people say he'd really help this bullpen right now, even if he might not be ready to start. 128 Ks in 90 innings. Look, if he can help you out of the bullpen, I'd like to see him. I don't know. There's something about him that doesn't make me quite comfortable with him being a big league pitcher. I don't know what it is, but maybe it's his propensity for walks, and you already have that guy in Kate Povich. Something about Chase McDermott just makes me nervous at the big league level at this point. I don't think overall, but right now, I'm just not sure. Your thoughts, Ryan?
I know that I'm pulling up his game logs now. His last couple starts, his last start last night was really good. 6 2/3 innings, 1 hit, 4 walks, 7 strikeouts, no earned runs. His start before that looks like it was a start. Only went a third of an inning, 2 hits, 3 walks, 4 earned runs. So that one's a little tough. But before that, 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 3 walks, 12 strikeouts. So he has shown flashes of being
dominant against AAA, but the walks at AAA are alarming.
Yeah,
because the walks are only going to go up at the big league level. It's a different it's a different caliber of player who's not going to be swinging at a lot of your chase pitches to start. And so like three walks in the third of an inning, 4
your chase pitches? Did you do that on purpose?
I did not. No pun intended.
Look, I think McDermott. We're going to see him this year. I don't know if it's going to be with an opportunity to start or to pitch out of the bullpen. But yeah, the walks are the only real concern with him. He's got the strikeout stuff. He's shown ability to dominate at times. So we're going to see him at some point this year. I'm just not sure what role he's going to be in. But I will say it can be tough to watch. Guys like Cole Irvin and Cade Povich when you've got a guy with the upside McDermott has. Right
Cole Irvin has just been a dumpster fire that he keeps pouring gasoline on himself. Like it's been night and day. It's been awful. Adita, I'm interested in Brody Breck pitching from Iowa as a pick, but it's probably Honeycutt, Dakota Jordan, Ryan Walsh-Schmidt, or Carson. I don't know how to pronounce that last name. I'm not going to try. Is it Bang? Is it Benji? I don't know.
I think it's just
Benj.
Benj.
The third one that I didn't mention. Yeah. I have no idea who they're going to pick. I don't think anybody does. I'm not sure the Orioles know who they're going to pick yet. It's all going to be who falls to them, or who doesn't fall, who's available. All I know is that they're going to pick somebody, and it's probably going to be a college player. That's the best. That's the best guess that I can give you.
Yeah, I could see them going with a high school bat because their farm system right now is kind of top heavy with guys who are, pushing the big leagues already. So they might give a guy who might take a little longer to make his way up to double AAA. But yeah, like I said earlier, I have the utmost confidence that they're going to take the top guy left on their board, and he's going to be a solid pick.
Wall Street window. How was Hyde ejected, but not the Yankees pitcher, the Yankees manager, after all the trash talk earlier? Everybody knows the Holmes, it wasn't intentional, so he's not going to get ejected for that. And they're not going to eject anybody from the dugout because Hyde was the most demonstrative. Like, those guys are yelling from their dugout. The umpire hadn't warned them about saying anything. Hyde was the one who literally threw the helmet, tried to push the catcher out of the way, and was physically going at, like, had to be physically held back. That guy's going to get ejected every time.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. Hyde charged the Yankees dugout. You're going to get tossed. And hockey has, a couple minutes for instigating, but it's hard to tell really who instigated that. And I don't think anything was done on the Yankee side aside from yapping that was
Wall Street window went on to say the umpires did not even issue a warning in the last series of the Yankees when they hit Henderson. They do nothing this type of crap. I agree with that. The fact that, like, it was clear and obvious that Ferguson intentionally hit Henderson and no warnings were issued, no warnings whatsoever. And I don't think that the Orioles need to go after, need to intentionally hit somebody. But at the same time, you've got to let the other team know, hey, we're not going to take your crap. The throwing a gunner was completely Bush League. And I think that Hyde let that frustration come out last night. And hopefully that's where it ends. But something needed to be done by the Orioles to let them know we're not taking your crap anymore. Like, we're not your little brother. We're not this last place doormat, cellar dweller in this division anymore. We're the standard bearer. Like, so I'm glad that Hyde did something, because something has to be done. The fact that the umps didn't issue a warning after that gunner hit by a pitch in the last series blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind. And then they hit somebody else and nothing happened. So I don't know. Daniel Pitts, why does anyone pitch to Aaron Judge right now? The Yankees are basically a two-player team of Soto and Judge. You don't let either of them beat you, especially Judge. I'd walk him every time unless you have a big lead. Well, they pitched to him one time last night and he hit a home run, and they walked him 4 other times. So they took a cue from you, Daniel, for sure.
Yeah, and just an awful 0-2 pitch from Povich. He just gotten ahead 0-2 with a couple curveballs below the zone, and then tried to come back with a third and just hung it right down the middle. And Aaron Judge is going to beat you when that happens. So good on them.
Despite Kevin Brown's best efforts, he's just 4 for his last 31 with no extra base hits. Sometimes it's like he's intentionally trying to jinx the team. I'm just like, I don't actually believe that, and I know he has to broadcast that. But tell me that you didn't at any point last night think, when he's saying, he's just 4 for 31 with 1 RBI and no extra base hits, you didn't think, well, now he's hitting a big home run in this game tonight.
Yeah, I mean, a slump means
it's
nothing
Aaron Judge.
to Aaron Judge. He he was awful in April, and then won 2 consecutive Player of the Month awards with ridiculous May and a
and you can't,
June.
like, one of them he hit like 400 that month, and the other one he hit like 14 home runs. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Daniel pitches. Ozuna shouldn't be an MLB, let alone the home run derby. Again, it depends on what he's done to repent for his issues and the things that he's done. Like, a lot of people thought Michael Vick shouldn't have been in the NFL after what he did, but the man went to jail and he paid his debt to society. If Ozuna's paid his debt, I'm okay with it. It's when people don't pay their debts that, and I don't know if he has or not. There's a guy who he's a cornerback for the Steelers. He played for the Lions and he released him. I can't remember his name right now. His name is Cam Sutton, yes. And he beat up his girlfriend and then threw her out of a 3rd-story window. And he got an 8-game suspension. That dude shouldn't be allowed to walk around free. And he's only got an 8-game suspension in the NFL. Like, that's a guy who shouldn't be allowed to do anything. He shouldn't be allowed to work at Walmart, let alone play in the NFL. Ozuna, it's not okay that he beat up his girlfriend. You will never get me to say that. It depends on if he's paid his debt to society. If you pay your debt, you pay your debt. That's how I look at things.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because I don't want to give him any leeway, but he did serve his suspension, and it does seem like over the last few years he's done a lot to try to, regain a positive reputation. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's despite, like, even with Ray Rice, you talked about he has done everything right since the incident with his now wife. It's still so hard to overlook. You
lack the self-control to not hit somebody who is clearly, one, a woman, and B, clearly weaker than you. Like to me, I don't know. I'm not the judge or the jury for who gets to play in professional sports. There are certain people who I think shouldn't be allowed to. What was the guy's name? Greg Hardy. The Panthers, and then he played for the Cowboys. Like, had a bed covered in guns and threw his girlfriend on top of him. Beat up his girlfriend a number of times and was still allowed to play football. Like, Cam Sutton should be in prison for attempted murder. Like, he should be in prison for attempted murder. Yeah. And he got an 8-game. Like, I don't understand how this stuff works. We got to get rolling. Wall Street window. Mayo needs to be up. Should have been on opening day roster, not Holiday coming up that week. Holiday had a good spring, and Holiday played second base, and that's what they needed at that point.
Yeah, I can see the case for Mayo.
Mayo.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I agree. I don't necessarily disagree, but I don't think I agree.
Could be working on 10 straight. Wouldn't surprise. What, 10 straight losses? I mean,
I don't know. That's Robert's only comment. I'm not sure.
Well, I think that was when we were talking about how the Orioles have to win. Oh, earlier in this when we were talking about how the Orioles have to win the series. When it's like, let's just win one game, and you said you can't go into the All-Star break with a 6-game losing streak. That might be what he's talking about. Could be working on 10 straight. It wouldn't 100% surprise me. Kalzer is Ryan McKenna right? God, that hurts my soul. Kalzer's a better defender, like, far and away.
Kalzer's a rookie, and McKenna had chances for like 4 years. Kalzer, like I said, hasn't even been here for a full calendar year yet. I don't think
he got caught up last year. I think in July, and then he was sent back down in August. But here's the other thing: Kalzer never referred to himself saying, "When you have a Ferrari, you got to take it out of the garage." Like know who you are.
Yeah. Yeah, and also the difference in vibes between those two guys is
Mateo Mullins, Kalzer, and Arias are the great inning killers. Arias is getting attacked. And he's the only guy who drove in a run yesterday. He's the only guy who's gotten hit with runners in scoring position in a week. But it's because he's the most egregious guy that doesn't really have a spot on this roster yet plays every other game. All right, that's going to do it for us. You have anything else to add before we get out of here, Ryan?
Not really, man.
Go Gunner in the Derby. Go O's today. Go Gunner. Go Grayson. Go O's just in general. Win these next 2 games and just remind everybody who you are, please. And can we have a good Saturday show next week? Can we win next Friday? That would be awesome.
That'd be nice. Start off the second half on a
start
On a
off
good
the second
note.
half, finish these last 2 games reminding the baseball world who the defending division champs are, and then go and remind the World Series champs that you just took 3 or 4 from them a couple of weeks ago. All right. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Without you, we don't have a show. Thank you to all of our listeners, viewers, subscribers. Without you, we certainly do not have a show. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. Enjoy the rest of this series with the Yankees. Enjoy the All-Star break.